And I am in the parking lot at work. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. I am doing my usual car hangout live. This is my typical chosen time to come hang out with all of you. Before we begin, and as people start to come in, I will let you know, or I will remind you that I am a certified trauma recovery coach. I'm also a survivor of abuse in a queer relationship. So that's usually what I come on here for. I come on here to hang out and give people access to me, get to know me, ask me questions, kind of talk through the whys and hows of abuse and abuse recovery. I also offer one-on-one coaching if that's something you're interested in. You can go to my website, lindsaygoodman.com, to book sessions there. And really quick before I begin, I want to let you all know that I did separate my accounts on TikTok and Instagram because I was very much floating in between having personal and professional sharing on my accounts. So I am now Lindsay Goodman coaching on TikTok. This is Lindsay Goodman Coaching, and I created the Lindsay Goodman, which was the old name of this account, to be more for my personal, just like whatever account. So that I have like it cut and dry where things go. And then on Instagram, I have created Lindsay Goodman Coaching over there that's specifically for coaching. So if you're here and you're like, what's going on? Where are you? I know it's a lot of accounts. I don't expect you all to follow me everywhere, but I just want to put that out there in case there's any confusion. Hi, welcome in. All of that said, as usual with my lives, you can ask me anything. Most often we do talk about abuse related stuff. But it doesn't have to be. You can ask me anything. This is kind of like my spiel when I begin. I'm a mama. I'm a single mom. I co-parent with his dad. I homeschool him. I like to travel. So there's a lot of things that I like talking about that's not just abuse related. So feel free to ask me anything. Or to just hang out. I've had people message me afterwards saying that they really wanted to ask me something or they wanted to interact, but they were just like, I'm too scared. I can't do it. I'm just hanging back right now. And that's perfectly fine too. If you want to say hi, introduce yourself, tell me your name and where you live. I would love that too, but do not feel pressure to do that. First question, how do you deal with your triggers? Thank you for asking. So for the most part, my triggers have calmed down a lot. Sometimes I will get triggered and I don't know, it's triggered is like where I'm at now, triggered is less of how it feels. It's not like that knee-jerk reaction that we feel when we are triggered by something. It's more of just like I remember that. And a lot of like, wow, I've come so far. I'm thankful that I'm not there anymore. But when I first was dealing with it, and absolutely, yes, there will still be things in my life that do make me feel that way. You know, I don't believe that we're ever really healed. I feel like we're just always healing and trying to take away the power from the triggers that have kept us in those fight or flight states. It was a lot of like recognizing how I was feeling in that moment, breathing through it, thinking through it, naming the trigger for what it was. Like, okay, this is happening. You're triggered. This is why. This is something that has happened to you many times in the past. This is very scary. Look where you are now. Yeah, I have been triggered on lives before. I have dissociated on lives before. And so it's really quick. And I just talk myself through it. Like, you're in your car, you're far away from someone who can, from the person who was hurting you. They have no power over you anymore. You're doing good. It's okay, baby girl. Like, it's okay. Like, talk to that little inner child. No one's going to hurt you now. I got you. Stuff like that. And that has helped me a lot. Of course, we're all different. Hello from Indiana. Hi. I am originally from Indiana. So hi, Third Eye. Welcome in. Hi, we spoke a few weeks ago. Just wanted to pop in and listen for a bit. Hope all is well. Yes, I remember you hanging out for a while. Thanks for coming. It's always nice to have you all here. I do usually, when I have like regulars, I do usually get to sort of know you and know who you are. South Bend, I am from not far from there. In fact, every time I come home, I pretty much have to go through South Bend. So fly to Chicago, go to South Bend, have someone pick me up, drive me home, blah, blah, blah. It's a big ordeal. So very familiar with that area. I have distrust with counselors and therapists. How do I talk to someone? Thank you for that question. That's a great question. I have talked about this a lot. I have been very public on my Instagram. Usually my Instagram stories is where I get like vulnerable. Like, of course, some of the content that I'm making, the podcast, I'm sharing vulnerable things, but it's like, I'm here, I'm going to create a podcast or I'm going to create, whatever. And so it's like less vulnerable because I'm like, this is what I'm going to make now. But I've come on my stories before and I have shared, it took me about a year to work with an actual therapist, a little bit longer than that. And even then, I was very hesitant, and still can be in moments. It can be very hard to trust mental health providers or even medical providers and people like that when you've been gaslighted by them or you've had bad experiences, as I did with couples therapy and even with my individual therapist during the time I was with my abuser. I was like, the things that I was saying, I've talked to some mental health providers and said some of the things that I was saying, and they have all said, oh my God, you are giving them answers on a silver platter, and neither of them were able to, they just weren't trauma informed, right? So the things that I was saying, they were probably just like, bitch, what? Like, you're over the top. Like, they really thought that I was the problem. And so it can be really, really difficult to trust. And yes, like Kat said, don't be afraid to try different therapists. It may take a bit to find a good fit for you. And that's part of the problem, is that a lot of times, like, for example, like I have used BetterHelp. I feel very lucky that I was gifted some time with BetterHelp. And yeah, I did move forward with the first therapist that I matched with, but I was very hesitant, and I was like, how are you gonna respond to the things I'm telling you? And it's hard because it's like, well, you got matched with someone, and a lot of times there's a waiting list, and it's hard to get in, and all of that stuff, especially when it's not someone, like, a lot of times, like, nowadays we're finding coaches and therapists on social media. That's what I'm here, that's what I'm doing. And so you kind of get a feel for how that person is, how they interact and stuff like that. So that might feel a little bit safer. So if you can find someone on social media, it doesn't have to be me at all. But if you're following a therapist or a coach or someone and you're like, I really like the way this person communicates, and if you're going into their lives and you're like, I feel really safe in this life, I feel seen and validated and stuff like that, maybe try that versus like going on, Psychology Today and just picking someone random. That can be really scary. Of course, not everyone is on social media, and there could be an absolute gem of a therapist out there, but it is very difficult. I hope that helps. It does take time. It takes trying, but not like, no one should expect us to just come out here and lay all our shit on the table after we've had bad experiences, right? You have to build trust with these people. So hi from Illinois, welcome in. Hey, basically living your story now, 2 months away from abuse in a queer relationship. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I also wish you weren't. I say that a lot. Thank you so much for being positive about it. Of course. I'm from England. Awesome. Love England. Oh, I'm from Kenosha, not far. Okay. I've never been to Kenosha. Yeah, my counselor spread around everything I told her. Yeah, see, that's not good. That's not setting you up to have trusting relationships with other providers. Do you think abusers can be rehabilitated? This is a really hard question to answer. I don't know. I think it depends on why they're being abusive. So for example, narcissists, psychopaths, sociopaths, no, I don't. I do know, and I do interact with some self-aware narcissists, and I think that they're doing the best they can with what they have. They're aware of their behaviors, their partners are aware of their behaviors, but they still are who they are, right? And you have to be so, like, they would have to be so aware and so, like, these people are in therapy and they've been in therapy for years, and they're going to be in therapy for the rest of their lives if they want to continue to be better than what they have been. I think if you're like, for example, if you have another mental health issue, for example, if you're an alcoholic, you're raised in a home, you've got trauma, and you're an alcoholic, and you're able to stop drinking and stop the behaviors that are coming out when you're, drinking, and how you're treating your family and friends and all that stuff. Like, a lot of times, like, people who are under the influence, people who are addicts, people who have certain, mental health situations can display abusive behaviors. And, with the right help and, breaking addictions and things like that. Also, I'm really just using an example here, then yes. But again, if it's a personality disorder, no, I absolutely don't believe that. Is what I write on here open to the public? It is if I click on it. So, if you ask me something on here, a lot of times if it's a general question, I will pop it on there. But if you're not comfortable with that, I won't do that. Anyone who's in here right now can read what you're saying. For sure. Actually, I think even if I don't click on it, I think it shows up in the playback. So that said, I don't think there's a way to ask questions privately on here. There is on TikTok. On TikTok, you can ask questions privately if you feel like weird. There is a private chat, but I don't know how to use it. Okay. Where are you located now? I am in Washington State. So yeah, great question so far. We are doing it. What else, y'all? Let's see. Today's podcast, Wednesdays, I publish new podcast episodes, and today's podcast episode is about boundaries. I talk about the difference between when a healthy or non-abusive person sets a boundary and what that can look like. Obviously, if you know how to set a boundary, because a lot of us don't know how to set boundaries because we weren't taught to do that, to set or receive boundaries. And then what it looks like when an abusive person, quote unquote, sets boundaries. So that's what today's podcast episode is about. If you're into podcasts, it's Not All Rainbows. So go and check that out. You can also, of course, ask me about that or talk about that if that sounds like something you've experienced. That was weird. What else? I do host an LGBTQ support group one Saturday a month. If you are queer and you want to be a part of that, that's something that you're interested in. I don't know who all is in here right now, but I also don't know who's gonna watch the playback later. So I got to keep putting these little plugs in. I'm trying to see if my phone is charging. One Saturday a month. We just had ours this past week, and we just had our third session. And it's going really well, and I think it's been really beneficial to people. And Trey De La Torre and I, he's from I Was Like Yo _Trey. We're really excited about this. So if that's something you're interested in, you can also find that information on my website. Are you still doing ASL, you mean? Not ALS, ASL? Yes, I'm a sign language interpreter. That is my main source of income. And while we're on that, I want to say that because I have gotten, whenever I have like a viral video about abuse and people come on and they're like, you're just sitting here making all these videos. I actually have a real job. I make a lot of content. I create a podcast and I'm a trauma recovery coach. So I coach people, but my actual job where I get my income and the reason why I'm able to travel is because I'm a sign language interpreter. So if you didn't know that about me, it would be amazing to do that less and to be able to do some other projects and things like that. I don't know why people hate that so much, why people think it's so bad to like be a creator. People do not like that. But that is who I am and what I do. I wear a lot of hats. So if we grow up in abusive households, do you think that we are more likely to wind up in shitty relationships, whether it's friendships or intimate relationships? I don't know the statistics on that. I think that it's a very high probability, yes. I think that even if it's not abusive, but where there is childhood emotional neglect, which I experienced, or just places where we're not feeling safe and secure, we're not demonstrated what love is, we're feeling like we have to earn love, our parents are inconsistent with us, especially if they're abusive, we are taught that, we're sort of like taught that that's what love is, that's what relationships look like. So it's much more difficult for us to like, if someone comes along and is treating us poorly, we just think it's normal. So I'm thinking about a lot of things that like my sister did to me when I was younger, or like my mom. I love my mom. I'm really close to her now, but there was a lot of things that weren't normal or healthy or good. And yes, that absolutely did set me up to have shitty relationships. I don't think that it's 100% guaranteed that that's going to happen. Like, for example, my little sister, she had a a-hole boyfriend when she was in high school, and she ended up dating a guy who like definitely not my taste. Like, no, thank you. But he was very secure for her, and she ended up having a very secure attachment, has a healthy relationship with him. Doesn't mean it's perfect, but she came from the same household that I did. So you're not guaranteed to be in abusive relationships because of that. But I do believe that we're at very high risk for that as compared to someone whose parents showed them good stuff. But I also want to point out that it can still happen to them. It can happen to anyone, right? It can happen to anyone of any age, race, background, economic status, um, education. Like it happens to first responders. It happens to lawyers. It happens to people who literally write policy on domestic violence. It can happen to anyone. Can I ask you, why do you think a narcissist uses through thick and thin and admits what they've done, but if you don't give in, they won't help with their child in any way unless you give them a chance? I don't think I 100% understand the question. I'll circle back. If someone wanted to talk to you one-on-one about their trauma, do they have to pay? Unfortunately, yes. I would like to eventually offer some way to offer like a free session here and there, but just because of the amount of time and effort that I would have to put into everyone who messages me, I do have a pretty clear boundary with that. If people ask me like a little question here and there, I will try to respond, but I'm on all social media and I get DMs all the time, and it's just not possible for me to sit down and give people like so here's what I'm trying to say is, if you book me, you have my attention. Yeah, sometimes my child might interrupt me because I am a stay-at-home mom and he's homeschooled, but it's a quick second and I'm back and I'm with you. But if you're messaging me on social media, you do not have my full attention because I've got 500 other things going on and I just can't sit down and commit that time to you because I do have, like, again, I have so much going on, and I have people who send me long emails or long, everything. And it's so hard because I want to be able to hear you all and validate you and respond, but I just can't. It's too much, unfortunately. Hey, oh, buddy, I made my first TikTok to talk about my own abuse story. You are my inspo. Thank you so much. I'm really proud of you. Yes, Kat, absolutely. It means a lot to me when people say that. Looking for your LGBTQ group, can't seem to find it on your website. Thank you for pointing that out. So Trey and I both have kids, and Trey has his kids every other weekend. So typically my guess is it's going to be the third weekend in April. Typically we pick it like 2 or 3 weeks before. So after we just have a session, there's like a lull and there's nothing there. And then we pick it, we book it, and we start talking about it again. We start sharing, content and posting it in our stories and stuff like that. So keep an eye out for it. I'll probably message him after this and be like, hey, what are we thinking? But if you just click on my website and go to the coaching tab, again, right now there's nothing there. But if you remember, like, make yourself a note to check again in a week, just in case you don't see like the other content that I post to like beckon you to come to it. It'll be the only Saturday. So you'll just come in. Actually, there is a tab for it on the website, on the Calendly website. There's like 30-minute coaching, 60-minute coaching, 6-week package. There's one to book only if you have booked the 6-week package. There's a text and email support, which, by the way, that's an option too if you want to do text and email support. But to do that, you have to have booked at least one session with me because, and this is another reason why I don't do sort of coaching or one-on-one like trauma advice and stuff via DMs, is because I don't know you. I don't know your story. And it's literally impossible for me to really help you when it's just via DMs. Like, even on here, sometimes you'll ask me a question and I'm just doing my best to answer based on what what I'm reading here and understanding. But it's so much better to be able to do that face to face. So I have done text support and email support. I had a client who was like, I can't come on right now. I've got the kids are awake and all that stuff. And we did it all through WhatsApp. And so, I have lots of options available, but I have to know you a little bit and I have to know your story a little bit, because otherwise I just feel like I can't do justice and help you in the way that I would like to be able to help you. But yes, thank you for asking about the LGBTQ support group. Keep an eye out for it. the next time that you go and look on the tab, hopefully it'll be there. It'll be the only Saturday available in April, so you'll see that on there. Also, another one, do you have to co-parent with them, involving morality for the child's sake of having their other parent? I tend to let him have more chances to abuse me because I have sole custody, but I don't enforce it because I feel so bad for her. Why do narcs discard their child? So there's a lot of questions here. Why do they stop taking care of their child when the relationship ends? Because the child is not offering them supply. It's not a good enough supply. They can get better supply elsewhere. The child's not doing anything for them. A lot of times when kids get older, they might circle back because they're like, cool, I can use this kid as a scapegoat or a go-between me and my ex or this or that or whatever. But especially when they're little, I don't know how old your child is. The children are often used as pawns in abusive relationships. So the child is possibly used to threaten you, to keep you around, say, I'm going to take this kid if you try to leave me, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And so if you've left, they don't need the kid anymore. There's no point. You're already gone. Mine used my kid a lot. Every time that I would try to leave, they would cry and say they couldn't live without him. Whereas this person literally never cried. They had that stone dead look in their face unless I was trying to leave. And they're like, oh, he's my baby. I've had him for 2 years. I can't live without him. And it worked for a long time until I was like, you say that and then you treat him like shit and you treat me like shit, right? They're pawns. And so, when I first left, it was very much, I'm going to fight for him. I need to see him. I still want to be able to help out. How are you going to work without me if I'm not babysitting him? All this stuff. And then when they realized that it wasn't working, they stopped. They stopped asking. They didn't care. They didn't need him anymore. They went to find someone else who was easier to manipulate and control. So I hope that answers your question. How much does it cost? Great question. Go to my website. All the information is on my website. My availability is there. The cost of each kind of session and program and everything like that is there. So you can just kind of like browse through the website. It's thelindsaygoodman.com. There's other stuff on there too. There's other information on there too. But yeah, go to the coaching tab and it'll give you everything you need. Do you think once you've been in an emotionally abusive relationship, it's possible that you can carry over those abusive or defensive traits into a future relationship? Absolutely. If you don't slow down and do your work to heal, because a lot of times when we're being abused and we're treated this way, our brains, we're so dysregulated and our brains are literally rewired and we're not ourselves. And so then you go and get into this other relationship and this person is unfortunately triggering you, whether of course they mean to or not. Abusive people are pushing your buttons on purpose. Not abusive people are like, oh, I didn't know. What's going on here? You just slammed the door and like left the house. I don't understand what happened. So you can be like, I'm just going to use like sort of negative words, but like immature, responding in ways that your abuser did because you were around that for so long. Some people call it narc fleas. I will put this out there again because a lot of people are using the word narcissist right now. Not everyone is a narcissist, right? But same thing applies. We'll call it abuser fleas or whatever, where their yuckiness gets on you. And so you got to cleanse. You have to be able to take that time, whatever that looks like for you, to be able to understand your triggers and understand what happened and understand that, this is a different person. And if they're triggering you, you should be able to talk to them and communicate so that they're aware of it and can work with you through that versus using it against you. The problem is that an abusive person, so if you start a new relationship, an abusive person wants to know right away what your triggers are so they can use them against you. And so I always caution people to be careful and to keep your deepest, darkest secrets close to your heart until you know that that person is safe. Because I'm telling you, within the first day or two, an abusive person wants to know how they can abuse you. I have a whole podcast episode about that. It's probably at least a year old. It's called, Don't Give an Abusive Person a Guidebook to Abuse You. Because that's what they do. And more often than not, because we're trusting and we just don't think that everyone is abusive, we literally hand them a book and say, here's my childhood trauma. Here's my trauma from my last relationship. Here's all of this. Go ahead, study it. And they do. They're like, awesome, great. This is gold. You just handed me a jackpot. And they run with it. So thank you. It does. It saddens me. Junior made me a shell of a person who couldn't function. I couldn't bathe. I couldn't work. I couldn't cook or clean. Now that I'm not that anymore, he wishes I would forgive him. I did forgive. I didn't forget. That does answer my question. Yes, he used my abusive child against me. Thanks for following. I see so many people following. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, that's what they do. They literally suck the life out of you, and it's very, very difficult to get that back, but it's possible. It's very possible. Childhood, sorry. Yeah, okay, good. I was like, I think something's off there, but yeah. Yeah, they'll use your childhood against you. I mean, many, many times when I would be distraught about something, my abuser would say, "This is from your childhood. This is because you're a middle child and you just didn't feel loved and seen as a child." I didn't feel loved and seen as a child, but I don't feel that way now. I don't feel like I'm just a piece of garbage and nobody cares about me, and I'm not being abused. Like, no, and they will absolutely use whatever pre-existing condition you have. If you have physical issues, mental health issues, whatever struggles. I don't like the word issues. It sounds like we are, broken or whatever, but they'll use it against you. And anything that develops while you're in it, they'll use it against you. My mother is what I call sneaky mean. She doesn't respect boundaries and tries to get you to lie for her when it will benefit her. Anyway, my daughter's birthday was the other week. We had a big party planned for her the Saturday after. So we were doing a nice dinner, her choice, and my partner brought her some cupcakes. My mom showed up and essentially shoved everything we did for my daughter to the side and brought this huge cake with her own candles. It really hurt. It may seem small. You did ellipses, so I'm not sure if you're about to type some more. Yeah, no, I totally get that. Like you said, it might seem small. It's just that it's this stuff that, like, sneaky mean, or what we call covert. Um, it's it's hard to spot, and from the outside, people will look at that and say, "Oh, she's just quirky. Oh, she just likes it her way. She's a little bit controlling," or "Oh, she's a perfectionist. That's that Enneagram 1," because, like, the Enneagram has really cool answers to it, but it's not always what's going on, right? She's got to have her way. She didn't mean anything by it, but really, it's like, well, she was disrespectful. She did this, she did that, and it. The hard part is that it's not obvious, and it doesn't feel like the end of the world. It doesn't feel like someone is purposefully trying to ruin your life, but what happens is it slowly chips away at you, right? Until you're just like, I don't care, dude, whatever. I might as well not do anything for my kid because my mom's going to show up and ruin it. There is so much pain in the small. Absolutely, yes, 100% it adds up. Yeah, a lot of people call it death by 1,000 paper cuts or something like that, where it's the smallest thing, but paper cuts freaking suck. My phone just like won't stay charging. Yeah, paper cuts suck. They hurt really bad. It's weird because you could have like a huge bruise somewhere on your body, and yes, it hurts, especially when you're like touching it in a specific way. But that paper cut is ruining your life. Like, you 100% know that it's there. A lot of the smaller physical pains that we have in our bodies are the more painful. I'm not talking like about like traumatic injury type things, but just day to day, like little random things that we can get, or like aches and pains and stuff. It's like, yeah, sorry it was a lot, but you literally just summed it up. She was pulling up my older daughter and she just wanted space. My mom wouldn't listen, and my daughter actually had her hand to mouth help me to get her off of her. See, that's not cool at all. She's disrespecting a lot of people there. And my advice to you is, there are people in this world who would look at me and be like, wow, you're just an a-hole and you want nobody to have family and you want nobody to have friends, because I'm a huge supporter of setting boundaries and cutting people out. And so it comes to the moment where you have to decide how much you want her to be involved in your life, and whether or not she's invited to these parties anymore, whether or not, it's either, Mom, this is what we're doing, and you can come if you're going to follow and respect what our little nuclear family is doing. If you can't, sorry, we simply do not want you there. And if she comes and she crosses your boundaries again, then at that point, it's like, we're going to just have the party and you're not coming. AKA, you tell her later and don't invite her. That's what I was talking to someone about today. Individually, it all seems small, but it just stacks up. Yeah, it absolutely stacks up. And it's a big burden to carry. It's like, I mean, literally, we're gonna take it. We're gonna take that visual literally. If you're carrying a stack of books from your shelf that you wanted to like donate to the little library down the street, and someone keeps stacking more and more books on you, even if they're children's books, little paperback children's books, eventually you're like, I can't carry this load, right? And you're going to drop some of the books and you're struggling. You're not, like, we can handle a lot, y'all. We can handle a lot. We shouldn't have to. Like, we are so trained from a young age to handle a lot of trauma and to just brush it off, get up, walk it off, keep your head up high, brush your shoulders off, all that crap that we're told. Literally, it's in songs. And all it does is serve to make us, tolerating things that we shouldn't have to be tolerating. This is what we are all taught how to be like. My dad ruined every time we did anything. If we went to Six Flags, he would pretend to turn around and start fights. My parents would drive back home. To have every fun thing we did was walking on eggshells. That is freaking horrible. I'm so sorry. It also doesn't surprise me. Vacations, stuff like that, it's a perfect time for an abusive person to throw crap at you. It's like I just recorded a podcast about abuse on vacations and how vacations don't fix anything and how it's prime time for them in the car on the way there, in the hotel, in the cabin in the woods, whatever, to abuse you because you can't get away. And then what a way to deliver abuse that's subtle and blame it on other people and be like, well, I was driving, everybody was doing this and that, I turned the car on because I'm not going to handle that, when really it's that person's fault. Like, that person was acting inappropriately. That person could have handled it differently. And it's like, I'm going to tease you all and I'm going to act like I'm going to take you to this place that costs money that we have to plan for. We bought tickets. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Maybe he didn't even buy tickets. I don't know. And everyone's getting their hopes up that we're going to have a fun time. We're going to bond as a family. And then he probably the whole time knew that it wasn't going to happen. Or maybe he did and just didn't care. But yeah, great time to deliver that abuse. Yeah, I learned to just shut up until I became an adult. Unfortunately, that's how so many of us feel. Because when you're under their control and their power and everything, you're kind of stuck. But then once you have your independence, or at least you're trying to, take care of yourself and do things for you, then you're like, okay, that was really bad. I don't want to live like that. I don't want my kids to live like that. All of that good stuff. Brr, I got cold. It's actually really nice out and it's sunny today. Don't yawn. How many of us have yawned with her? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna yawn again just because you said the word yawn. I am exhausted. I have been very tired these last 2 weeks and I'm not really 100% sure why. I definitely probably need to go to bed a little bit earlier, but it's one of those things where I'm like, I can't figure out why it's this extreme. Yep, learn to shut up, but I still do it as an adult. I'm sorry. Yeah, not fun. Stop saying it. I was good until I read that message. I know. I'm not even going to say it out loud. It's a time change. Yeah, that could be it. I'm still just dragging from it. If I see the word yawn, I hear the yawn, I see a yawn, I'm done. I have to yawn. They say that if you yawn when someone yawns, that you have empathy. I don't know if that's true or not. But I tested on my nieces and nephews. I'm like, let me see if you can yawn. And I have one nephew who's just I'm like, this guy, we're gonna have to watch out for him because he ain't got no empathy. He's not 2. Obviously, 2-year-olds don't have that. But yeah, because even as an adult, you'll see through a narc. You'll say, hey, don't talk to me this way. Then you're the problem. Yep, of course. Okay, sorry. I keep having to check if my phone is charging or not because otherwise it's going to die. Yeah, absolutely. With an abusive person, everything is on you. They will not, I try not to use words like always and never, but typically they will not say, they don't have the ability to actually reflect and say, yeah, I've been being really selfish. I've been expecting her to spend a lot more money on the things that we're getting together, I need to apologize and, fork over some cash for the next purchase we make or whatever. They can't do that. It's like, well, you could be working more. You could be trying harder. You should be less selfish. I don't make as much as you. I don't this, I don't that. It's your fault, right? It's always your fault. Big thing, small thing, whatever it is. They just literally do not. They do not. Period. Just a quick little email check while it's quiet. Thank you for sharing the live. I appreciate it. Oh, what is this? Weird. Okay. You sound so intrigued by that email. Yeah, so it's not that important. I'll tell you though. It's sometimes I apply for collaborations. Not very often because I'm very, very picky. Oops, TikTok got cut off. So I will wait. Okay, well anyway. I'm very strict about it. I've done very few, and when I do collaborations, hi TikTok, welcome back. I'm very picky about what it is. It has to be something that I actually use or like, or I'm willing to try. And if I try it and I don't love it, I have to be able to be honest about it. I do not want to lie for money, because I need people to trust me. I need people to know that I'm real. And yes, I have ADHD and I'm healing, so maybe what I like today might not be the same as I like in a couple of months or in a year. But I want you to see that I am being honest and real with all of you. So anyway, it was just like they're changing how they do the thing, and I haven't applied for any collaborations recently, so I was just like, what is this? But yeah, I'm too scared she will see it if I share. That is definitely possible. If she's on Facebook, if she follows me, that's possible. So let me see here. No, okay, that's a private chat for, okay. You could message me on Facebook. You could private message me and I can try to respond while I'm here if I can get it open. I'm married to a man who's retired and I work. He's a narcissist all the way. I hate my life. That makes sense. It's not easy to enjoy your life when you live with someone who is abusive. So I had to leave my job. My boss had me watching her grandkids. I would say no, but she would say, I'm going to get you the promotion. I did get the promotion. She ruined it because her grandchildren told the abuse they were suffering. Her grandkids got taken. She blames me because I was called by CPS. And I told them what her grandkids told me. She made my life hell at work, even though I didn't do anything wrong. It was terrible. This is why I'm not friends with anyone I work with. I'm glad you said that because, most of the time when I talk about abuse, I'm talking about my experience in an abusive relationship as an adult. Sometimes I will talk about childhood trauma, childhood emotional neglect. And of course, that's my own personal experience. I do have training and understanding of other types of abuse from family members, parents, and things like that. But one of the things that I see the least on here, on social media in general, or at least like being talked about, is abuse and situations at work, situations at with colleagues and things like that. People really don't talk about that. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, YouTube and Facebook comments are still there when you rewatch the live. TikTok doesn't. If you want to share on there, oops, I said that too late. No, you're good. Nope, he's always here and I work from home. Changing shift to work longer shifts, so I'm in an office. Yeah, I mean that in itself is a huge sign that something is wrong at home, right? If you dread going home, you purposefully leave the house just if they let you leave the house. You purposely leave the house and stay out as long as you possibly can because you don't want to be around them. And having an abuser who's home all the time, like COVID and quarantine 3 years ago, was horrible for anyone who was being abused. If you were stuck with a parent who's abusive or a partner who's abusive, my guess is that it probably escalated because those people are miserable. They're not getting supply from out in the world because, right, they have supply that they use for like in relationships and things like that, but other people can be supply as well. People at work, people that they're getting compliments from or getting attention from. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to date, like pursue that person, but there are people who like admire them at work or this or that. So having someone just like sitting there at home can be very dangerous and obviously very uncomfortable. So you have helped me heal so much. I just want you to know that we went through so much of the same experience. Thank you so much for telling me that. Literally, every time someone says that, my heart like squeezes really tight, like not in a panicky way, not like oh my gosh, I'm not safe here, but it just squeezes really tight. And I just can't believe that I've been able to help so many people. And it still just doesn't feel like that. Like it just, not in a way that I'm like, please, everyone get in line, tell me how amazing I am. Like, not at all, but it just doesn't feel like I'm making that kind of impact. I know that I am, but it's just such a surreal thing because it's like virtual world and I can't see you all in real life and meet you all. And I mean, I have, when I was in Austin, Texas, I got to meet some people that definitely said that my content helped them and things like that. But it's just like, damn, it's so surreal. So thank you so much for sharing that. It was my second queer relationship after leaving a man, and I just didn't understand what was happening. Yeah, it is like that. And that's what we talk about in our LGBTQ support group one Saturday a month. We talk about, I mean, not every time, it's different every time, but we talk about how it's different. It feels different, or we think that the rules might be different when we're new to the game. We don't understand. Like there were things that I tolerated. Like I remember telling my husband, if you so much as ball up your fist at me when you're angry, I'm out. It was a little bit dramatic, but I have been physically abused by a man before. So he knew that even if he was really upset, he needed to stay calm. He needed to keep his body calm and his body language calm. And he did. He honored that. He was like, I think that's fair. I don't need to be showing that kind of rage anyway, right? Like, why aren't we just like talking and letting off steam? Like, poor men, not poor men, but like, how do I say this? I don't feel sorry for men who are like for their behavior and all that stuff. But what I feel sorry for is the way that they were all raised and taught that they couldn't have any other feeling than anger. They're allowed to blow up. They're allowed to be scary. They're allowed to be mean, but they're not allowed to be sad or scared or hurt. Right. So again, big thing. But then with my abuser, within 6 weeks, they had physically abused me, let alone all the other stuff that was happening within days. And I tolerated it. And I don't like that language because it's not my fault. I don't do any victim shaming. It is so confusing no matter what the gender of the person you're dating is. But it's just like, well, this is different, right? Like they're not that much bigger than me. They didn't do it as bad as the other person did. Maybe this is normal. Maybe it's whatever, right? It's very different. Yes, I thought abuse looked one way. I didn't realize not speaking to me for days with no feeling. I know what you're going to say. Yeah, it's, and this is one of the things that I talk about the most is that we're all taught that abuse is a man abusing a woman physically, right? Sometimes we might be like, yeah, you know, like we see movies and we're like, oh man, he took her keys and like trapped her in a room and wouldn't let her leave and he was yelling at her and whatever. Like, so there's like, it can branch off a tiny bit, but still abuse is so put in this little tiny box. And our awareness of abuse is very limited in general. Obviously, more people are talking about it. There's more education on it and stuff like that, but we're all just, if someone punches you in the face, that is bad, right? So anything outside of that, any other kind of abuse, which all of them are valid, all of it is abuse, all of it is, well, all of them valid. I mean, like these are valid, like recognized types of abuse. I didn't mean like it's valid to do that, obviously, but that stuff like we just didn't know about. So yeah, not speaking to you for days, no explanation. I thought dating a woman was just different. Yeah, me too. And you know what? And that is one thing, and I'm going to say this. There's something else too about like having two people with periods. Because again, society tells us that if you have a period, you're crazy and you're unstable and you have too many emotions, right? Like people are like, you see the memes where they're like, now and it's about men, they're like, oh, you're saying women are too emotional, and it's like a man punching a hole in a wall. But like we've all just been told like, oh, it's, or like people will say like, oh, is it your time of the month? Oh, you're just you're PMSing. Oh. But so then you're with another person with a uterus, and you're like, yeah, this is like a lot of emotions, and like this is how women deal with emotions and whatever. But really, like when I was PMSing or when I was having emotions and whatever, I never tackled that person. I never kept them from leaving the house. I never did the things that they were doing to me. So it's not just dating a woman. It's not just dating a non-man. It's not anything like that. It's really unfortunate that that's the message that we've been given, and we're really set up to fail when it comes to that kind of thing. But again, it's across the board. It's the same with men. Like obviously men don't have periods unless they have a, if y'all don't know me, I'm a very inclusive person, and I am LGBTQ, and I am an ally to trans people. So I try to use the most inclusive language. If you don't like it, bye. Obviously, I do believe that there are some men that have periods. If you identify as a man and you have a period, I see you. You're a man. You're good. So I'm trying to use the most inclusive language possible. Cisgendered men don't have periods, but like you still have the same confusion about what's going on. And so then with men on the flip side, maybe you're not like, oh, it's their time of the month, but you're like, oh, he's just so stressed out at work, or like his parents never talked to him about how to deal with his feel. I did that a lot with my ex-husband. Honey, there's no excuse for it. You're an adult man, you're in your 30s, you have a child. It is time for you to learn how to communicate. I don't say bad things about him, but like that's the truth, right? It comes to a point where your lack of learning about emotions as a child because of your parents and society, it's not an excuse anymore. Get up and do the work, right? And so across the board, no matter what the gender of the person is, we just are led to believe that things are normal when really they're not. We stand inclusivity. Yes, we do. Trans lives matter. Yes, she used to tell me I just didn't understand how to be a lesbian. I roll. I got that a lot too. So for all my straight people here, strap in or strap out. I don't care. I'm going to go into a little bit of queer stuff here. I am a queer person. This is really important. I received a lot of abuse around, telling me how to have sex, how not to have sex. This is how it is done. These things are not done. All lies. About my quote unquote label, how I identify. You're not lesbian enough. I need you to prove to me that you're lesbian. When I were too lesbian, rein it back in. Dress like this, don't dress like that, do this, do that. There was a lot of that. Again, this is how we can have sex, this is how we don't have sex. And this is a very common thing. When you have an abusive queer person, sexuality can be used against you. Now, if you are bisexual or pansexual and you are in a straight presenting relationship, that person could also abuse you about your sexuality. Because, so say it's a man and you're bisexual and he knows you're into women, he could abuse you about that, right? And these are just examples. That could happen too. Look, oh, well, I don't know. I've never experienced that, but 100% sexuality is used to abuse people. And that's not talked about that much. So I do have a podcast about it. Last June, I believe all 4 weeks of June, I did gay related podcast episodes because I was like, it's Pride Month. We're doing this. I'm going to do it again this year. Because, the title of my podcast is It's Not All Rainbows. I tried to make sure that queer folks can find me. If they need me, I am here. I used to say on my podcast, I'm here for my queers, but everyone is welcome here. That's still the case. I am here for my queers, but everyone is welcome here. So I try to do some specific queer stuff when I can, but I just don't want anyone to feel excluded or like it doesn't apply to them, because it does. It applies to everyone. As soon as I have a chance, I'll be joining the support group. We would love to have you there. Definitely highly suggest the support group. It's amazing. Thank you so much, Kat. Yes, we love Kat. Kat has been helping sort of facilitate sometimes. If we have a bigger group, we need a little bit more help with managing the way thing goes and managing questions and doing polls and stuff like that. So Kat has been helping, and they've just been amazing. And so we would love to have you there, Lauren. Like I said, we don't have the date for April yet, but it's one Saturday a month. And typically once we decide it, we start getting that information out there as much as possible, because we want people who need it to be able to come, for sure. Trey and I both were abused in our first queer relationships, and we we just did not have the support. We didn't have a community or anything like that. And so we both just really want that to be available for our people. I never knew women could be abusive. It was unreal how my boss would just scream at me at work. No one believed anything I said. The only defense I had was if a child tells you something, you should help them. I didn't want to watch her grandkids because I have 3. She could have avoided people knowing about the abuse occurring by watching them herself. I don't think she thought I would say anything. She thought her role as my boss could shut me up. Yeah, and that's another great. You're giving some really good examples of other types of abuse that we see in society, and this is clearly an abuse of power, where you'll have an employer where they're like, "Well, I'm their employer. I'm their source of income. I have all the power. They can't survive without me, so I can do whatever I want and I'll get away with it." That's a very common thing. We see a lot of obviously people in power, politicians, actors, doing things and getting away with it. Not really sure how to get back out and make new friends. Was isolated with the ex. Any suggestions? I'm going to be real with y'all. I still don't have any friends. I say this all the time. I sort of laugh about it. My friends are online friends or far away. My friends are either people that I've had for a very long time who knew me before the abuse, who knew me when I was married or even before. And they have stuck by me through thick and thin. They received me with open arms when I was like, hey, this is what was going on. I'm sorry that I abandoned you. I'm here, totally understanding. Or people I met online who have proven to be really safe, like Kat. There are very few people in both of those bubbles. I like to tell people that I don't have a circle, I have a dot. So if you're on my dot, feel special because you are. Very picky, and I don't really put myself out there. I have downloaded the apps and I have met people on apps and stuff like that, but I don't look for friends at all. I don't. So I can't really give you personal advice on that. The only thing that I can think of is like when I first left, I was like, I need friends. And so there were some friends that were in my circle that weren't safe for me. I didn't like the way that I felt around them. I felt very similar to how I felt when I was around my abuser, where like their name would pop up on my phone and I would get a reaction. I would have a reaction because I was like, oh no, what are they going to say? Is it good or bad? Am I in trouble? Did I say something wrong? And a lot of times it was. They were like complaining about how I worded something or whatever. And I was like, then if you don't like me, you can go have some other friends. So my one piece of advice is to be picky. Be picky. Take your time getting to know someone, just the same as with a relationship. Don't tell them everything up front. Say things like, I'm recovering from an abusive relationship. I don't want to go into details. Hopefully someday you'll get to know more about me, but I'm going to be a little bit cautious. I'm going to take things slow. So, yep, after the abuser, I'm done with most of the friends I had. Yeah, same. If you're queer, diversity, pride centers have activities that you can meet people at. Oh, yeah, good call. I probably should do that. Mine are really far away, so I don't really dip into those. Exactly. I didn't feel safe at work because a lot of the workers didn't see the part of her I did. And that's the other thing is so that with abusive people, they know how to mask. They mask really well. They pick and choose who the mask goes down in front of. And so a lot of people aren't going to see it. And so if you do speak out, you're the bad one. You're the problem. Because no one else is going to believe you because they've never seen her act like that. So you must be a liar. And then, she's got the power. It's funny because right now I'm picturing, I don't watch what's it called? Chick flicks or whatever. That's what it's called, right? I don't watch those. But I'm picturing like the Devil Wears Prada type people when you're talking about your boss. Like she's just like this powerful woman in like heels and a pencil skirt. What I'm picturing. Boom, 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 boom. Thank you. I'm always nice. I am always nice to everyone. I do have high boundaries. That's okay. Boundaries are good, even though a lot of people don't understand that. Thanks. I just probably going to check out the one in LA soon. Oh, there you go. You're in LA. You've got options. Although I do feel like, sometimes in big cities, it's easier to make friends because there's more options and stuff to do. But sometimes it's harder because there's so many people. And it's overwhelming. I also, personally, I just don't like like where I live, and I don't like the vibe of the people where I live. It's I have never, even before the abuse happened, I just never really, actually I did. I had two friends, but they both moved away. And they were lovely. And I did lose both of them during the abuse, and have reconnected with both of them, and I'm very thankful for both of them. But I had two good friends, and again, they moved away, and I just, like everyone else that I've ever met, I didn't really like the vibe. I feel like this is very much, it's a military, a retiree community. And so I feel like there's a lot of fake people, period. People who, like, if you're in the military, you have to look good. If your spouse is in the military, you have to look good. You can't have problems. You can't have mental health problems. You can't talk about the things that I'm talking about. Like, if I was still with my husband, and again, he's not my abuser, but he would very much be like, you cannot be talking about this stuff publicly. Like, obviously, if it was about him, he would be like, hell no, you're gonna ruin my career. It's not about him, but he would be embarrassed because I'm talking about this. In fact, he's blocked on my accounts because I don't feel like he just doesn't understand what I'm doing. And I think that that's a big issue. If I am around you and I can't be honest with you and be real with you, then you're not my friend, and I don't want to be around you. I don't want to spend time around a bunch of people who are acting like they're fine, acting like they love being, part of military life, or that they never have any problems in their relationship. Do you have to tell me your problems? No, absolutely not. We can have our privacy, but I'm not going to just sit here and pretend like everything's perfect just because I don't want my husband's boss to find out that I have childhood trauma or whatever. I'm very happy to not be married into the military anymore. That is something I don't talk about very often, but the whole town is like that. And then also the whole town, there's a CrossFit gym in town. A lot of people go to it. The CrossFit gym is where I met my abuser, and everyone that went to the CrossFit gym ended up siding with my abuser. And I do believe that it's because I talked about it. I think that had I kept my mouth shut, they would have been like, this is too bad. They broke up. Oh, man. Oh, well. You guys can both just keep going or whatever. But because I spoke up about it, they were like, you're out of here, because, I didn't want to go anyway. But because it's uncomfortable for them, because you're just supposed to keep your head down. I'm sure there's a lot of people in that gym that have marital problems and have abuse or toxic situations or something that they're hiding from people, because, a lot of people do. And that's just how it is. We keep our heads down. We don't talk about it. And so because I talked about it, it was a no-go. So now, just because I don't know who has connections with who in this tiny little town, I don't hang out with anyone here at all. I go to other towns, and I cannot keep this phone charging. Was in the military as well. Definitely not a place for having feelings. Yep. I remember wanting to go to therapy when I was still married and feeling like I couldn't. And that's not good. It's too exhausting to be fake all the time. Ellie is fake too. Absolutely. I'm packing my bags to come live with you. We shall co-parent. I would love that. I'm in the Bible Belt, not much here. Yeah, no, you're screwed there. And people wonder why people don't talk about it and share their experiences. Absolutely. There's so many reasons why survivors don't share their stories. Same with my hometown. That's where it was from. Something bad happened to me when I was 13, and I didn't even tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody in that town, because the way that it was, of course, like, the adults were protected, the men were protected, the abusers were protected. And if you talk, you're a problem, you're a liar, all of that stuff, right? And we're all taught that from very early on. We're all taught that from so early on. I'm specifically referring to non-cis men. We are all taught this. We are all taught to keep our heads down, and we see what happens when people speak out. We see the criticism. We see the taunting. We see the name calling. All of that stuff, and it's very, very difficult. People turn their back on you. They threaten you. I was definitely threatened by some people at the gym. I was threatened because I took my dog. I was threatened because I was speaking out. And that's the kind of people that are in the town where I live. So I pretty much, but I will say this, and since we're talking about healing, I'm going to toot my own horn here. I have done a great job of not becoming reclusive, where I am shielding myself from the world and I'm staying away from everybody, and I don't go out, and I'm just like, because we can pull in too far. I think that when you first leave, if you want to pull in all the freaking way, do it, right? Pull in as far as you need to. So I'm not reclusive. I go out, I'm in the world, I'm around people. I'm an extrovert, so I like to go to coffee shops. I like to go to events and like art classes with my son and do things like that. But I don't necessarily make friends because I already have amazing friends. They're just far away. And I go and visit them and I stay in touch with them and all that stuff. And two, because, I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, because I like to be alone now. I cherish my alone time, whereas before I was running from my alone time because I didn't want to face my childhood trauma. I didn't want to face my pain. And I've done a lot of work with that. I've done a lot of work with sitting with my own feelings and sitting by myself and just enjoying what I do and what I like to do. So, for example, I have two friends that live in the town that I go to a lot on my me day, and I don't even text them anymore. And does it make me a bad friend? Maybe. But it's also reciprocal, right? Like they're doing their own thing too. I don't like to hang out with people anymore. It used to be, oh, I have free time. Are you free? What are you doing? I need to hang out because I can't be alone. I couldn't be alone. Even though before all of this, I liked to be alone. I would travel alone, all of that stuff. And so now I very much value my alone time. So that's another thing too to consider is that, if you're not ready to meet friends, like be your own friend. And I know that sounds really cheesy and cliche and people are like, oh my gosh, like if I was out here and that's all I said on my account was like, love yourself, be your own best friend. Like you guys would all be like, you on like ayahuasca or like, what are you doing? Like, why is it? I don't know. I've never done ayahuasca and I don't really know what it does. So I might've just made that up, but it was just like, I don't know, whatever people take to be like happy, like chill all the time. But 100%, if you can be your own friend and you can learn to enjoy your own company, it's probably the biggest gift that I'm given myself, that and traveling with my son. You know, it's crazy when everyone blames you and the truth slips out. They don't say anything to them about their behavior. I remember how I was treated after the situation. I won't date because of how much has happened. Everything is a red flag. Yeah, I mean, but also to be fair, and I don't like to be like negative Nelly, but like a lot of people are very unhealthy right now. This is the way we were raised, the way that society is okaying all of this kind of behavior, normalizing it in songs and on TV and movies and all that stuff. The way we treat each other, and it's all normal. Like, if you tell your parent, my partner did this, they're like, yeah, your dad does that too, or whatever, because like it's generations piled on top of generations of like yuckiness. And so the dating pool isn't very healthy. People are hurting. And so it's fair. Like, again, we don't want to become so reclusive that we're just like, I'm just going to die alone. Like, people, I'm okay if that happens. If I die, I'm not going to know. I'm just going to be dead. Like, it's fine. But, it was always like, I don't want to die alone. And so I kind of like a little offshoot there, but like, we don't want to just go and live in a cave is what I'm trying to say. But it's also perfectly okay to be like, I don't need to have these kinds of connections anymore because they're not real connections. They're fake. They're one-sided. They're unhealthy. I don't like how I feel when I'm around them. It's 100% fine and valid for us to not want to be around people like that. Doesn't mean that we think we're better than them. It doesn't mean that we think they're bad. It's just, it's not happening, right? No one apologized for taking the narc side. It's like it didn't happen. I'm afraid that I'll just find another one because I don't text people back or call people. Do think I'm ignoring them. I'm not. Socializing isn't as important as peace I have at home. Absolutely. I agree with you. I think that it's so important. It's so important. And we're made to feel guilty for wanting to be alone, for, enjoying our own time, and for being in our own worlds. We're made to feel guilty. We're made to feel wrong because it's like you're supposed to be with your family. You're supposed to have a friend group. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do that. And yes, if you have a good one, if you have healthy, good connections, that's great. That's awesome. But if you don't, do your own thing. More and more people are going and living in camper vans and buses and doing stuff. More and more people are living alone. More and more people are just doing things their own way because it's not working. What we've been doing for so long is not working. So, okay, I think I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm very tired and I'm gonna like rest for a couple minutes before I go back to work. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. As always, I really enjoy these conversations. And I hope that it's helpful to all of you and you feel like you get to know me and interact with me a little bit more than when I'm just, posting stuff in my stories. So before we go, again, I'm a trauma recovery coach, certified trauma recovery coach. I offer one-on-one coaching, and also have the LGBTQ support group, which is one session a month. You can find all that information on the lindsaygoodman.com. Also, I did separate my TikTok and Instagram accounts. So I'm now at Lindsay Goodman Coaching if it's coaching stuff. And the Lindsay Goodman is me. Travel, mom life, co-parenting, all the things, like the healing version of me, all the things that I enjoy and make me happy that's not specific to abuse. It's kind of my safe space. So if you want to follow me on all of them, I would love to have you there. If you're like, nah, I'm just here for the abuse, or I'm sick of the abuse, I'm just going to stick to the fun stuff. Totally up to you. But I did want to clarify that for anyone who's like, what's going on here? Is there anything else? New podcast out today. It's anywhere you can listen to podcasts. It's about boundaries and how abusive people set boundaries and how non-abusive people set boundaries and how that battle can look. So definitely check that out if that's something that might help you out. Also, if you listen to the podcast or if you are on YouTube, please rate and review and subscribe and all of that stuff, because it really does help. And I read all the reviews. So if you send me a review on the podcast, I always read it and I'm always very thankful. So if you listen, I appreciate your feedback. Thanks for spending time with us. We'll be checking for an update on the group. Thank you so much. I will hopefully look forward to having you there. Take care, everyone. And I always say this when I wrap up the podcast, go drink some water, and I will do the same. Bye, y'all. We're still here.